So going on from the school age then, what about this idea, and this is the second sort of main suggestion we had from our survey results, the promoting of the diversity of IT roles that are available. So somebody commented about this, that it's not just about banking, that it's agriculture, it's medicine, it's abstract thinking, there's all sorts of things covered. Do our girls, perhaps females going into work, understand the diversity of things around, and what can we do to help?
I personally don't think that girls or boys, for that matter, have very much of an idea about what goes on in the workplace when they're at school.
Well, that's true.
I think part of the problem is that if you address an audience of parents at a school and ask them to put their hands up if they're a lawyer or a teacher or a nurse or a doctor, you get a fair few hands up in the air. And obviously their children are living with their parents in those roles, and they've got some maybe vague idea about what it involves. I remember overhearing one of my sons talking a few years ago about what mummy does at work, and he said, well, she just talks all day. So obviously, he had a really good idea about what I do at work all day. So I think it's very, very difficult to communicate to anyone about what the world of work is like. The reality of IT, of course, is it is incredibly diverse.
Yeah.
I don't think I've done the same job for more than 2 years in 30. And that's been one of the huge attractions and excitement about working in IT and staying in IT. But it is very difficult. It's very difficult to describe that to people who have no, reference point.
Yes.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Rebecca. I mean, we're doing a lot of work with local schools to bring them into our organisation and just show them. I think that's really, really powerful. You can try and talk to them about it, but until you actually give them the practical experience of what it means to work in technology, they're not really going to wake up to it. We brought a number of different schools in. We explained to them, what do you think technology means in banking? And they said, well, going into a branch and taking money out. But that, there's so much more to offer in organisations. The breadth of activities that we were able to demonstrate to them really got the excitement going, and building that relationship on a long term with the schools and the teachers, because even some of the teachers didn't realise some of the work that's going on and some of the things that you get involved in really will help engender that and bring that back to the community.
So again, that's sort of a grassroots type thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. As Rebecca said, there's so many diverse roles in technology. I'm the same. I haven't done the same role since I joined. So much you can do at different levels. From programming to requirements gathering to talking to people, which women, let's face it. And that's really good, because communication in technology is pretty key. Being able to communicate with a user what they want and with your developer who needs to do the programming is important. It's vital, and having a lot of women who can do that help develop better products. They're going to meet the consumer demand.
Yes.
So that's got to be a positive thing.
Yes. Okay, interesting. The third level then, that was mentioned, which we've touched on already, was addressing the flexible working capabilities in organisations. And we come back to that stat that the part-time working possibilities in IT are much lower than even in other industries.
See, I think the issue is much broader than flexible working.
Okay.
I've been doing some work with Gillian at the moment around unconscious bias. And unconscious bias is something we all have. We all have deep-seated values. It's very difficult to change. But if you understand what they are and you understand how they project, then you can manage that.
Yes.
We started a piece of work in the BCS a couple of years ago to educate our boards and committees about unconscious bias. And this follows a pattern that most corporations have been implementing for the last few years, which is really looking at how can we be aware of how we might be randomly discriminating against other people without realising it or intending to. So we've done a first phase of work within the institute, and it's gone down really well. A lot of the people who've attended it have said, I had no idea, I didn't realise.
Yes.
And that's really, really the point.
Yes.
Now we've got some funding from the Royal Academy of Engineering to fund a second phase of rollout within the institute, but also to provide unconscious bias training materials to 29 other professional engineering institutes. So this is sort of recognising that a lot of our professional institutions, which are leading our professions
Yeah.
in attitude as well as professional qualifications,
Mm-hmm.
need to be aware of this issue. We're really proud of the fact that we're leading that charge.
Well, I think it sounds like you're very much leading it, because in the research that Big CS did, only 39% of those that answered this question were having any sort of unconscious bias training or diversity training in their workplace. The other 61% either weren't or didn't know. Either way, that's no good, is it?
No, and it can be really damaging to people's career opportunities. So, you know, if one of the unconscious bias things that you hold deep inside you is, she's a woman, she's not ambitious, she'll probably go off and have children, then when there was a job opportunity, you might not consider that woman. You might consider the other guys in the team because she's not ambitious. But actually, if you only kind of stopped and thought, do I carry this? Do I have this opinion? Then you might rethink the woman and whether she might actually want to have a go at the opportunity.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. The other issue I'd just like to raise here is I suppose changing the perception of the board level or recruitment level folks who perhaps are predominantly men, perhaps they aren't, I don't know. But the research showed that, for example, in terms of salaries, that was it 35% of the respondents thought that the salaries that men and women got were the same in IT.
It's a
So
big
there's an
gap
education thing there,
either
isn't
way, and it's made up of two things. So the first thing is that there are lots of females at the top, lots of males at the top who are getting big salaries, and there aren't a commensurate level, number of women, and so there's a gap. But the other part of the gender pay gap is about real discrimination, and that needs to be fixed. We're 35 years since we had this legislation.
Yeah.
How can we continue in this state? And I think personally that the HR departments and the board level people in some of the big institutions in big organisations in this country know that there is a gender pay gap, and they are not fixing it because it would cost them too much.
Yeah.
And that's a shocking state to be in.
Yes. Now, if you had a younger IT professional come to you now, a female IT professional that was thinking of getting out because they weren't getting what they wanted, what would you say to them as a kind of cheerleading? You didn't ask Masters, did you?
No.
That's what I didn't tell you. What would you say to try and change their mind, to show them where they could go?
You know, it's just a fabulous career. There's just so much fun and so much value to be got from a career in technology. But you'd need to understand what it was that was moving them away, whether it was the culture or the pay gap or a lack of flexible. You would need to understand, and maybe that's the difference, that we'd ask the questions and we'd have the conversation.
All right. Yeah, good answer.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to understand why, and we need to put more research into that. What's turning women off technology? You know, do they believe they have to behave like men to get to the top in technology?
Yeah.
And is that what's putting them off? And what can we do to change that perception? We need to support women when they reach certain levels. We need more men to mentor them, because that will help them to realise their potential. And I think that could potentially put a lot of women off. They get to a certain level and think they've got to behave like men to reach the top positions, and they don't have to. So we should mentor them and encourage them to stay in the organisation.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I never really thought about whether mentoring was terribly sort of gender specific, is it? Is there any figures on that?
No, you should have mentors from all kind of walks of life, and both genders, or
They change over time.
Yeah, and bits of mentors for different things.
There's another point I think it's important to try to get across to women who are in IT and considering leaving or drifting away, and that is, if you're not clear about what you want, nobody will know. Quite often you just have to say, I'm not very happy, I'm not very happy in this role, I'd like to go and do that job over there, or whatever it is, and we're not always all that good at putting our hands up and saying, you know what, I really want to do this.
Mm.
And if the organisation says no, well, at least you've given them the opportunity. Then you can go and do it anyway.
Yeah.
The other point about IT, which I think does resonate particularly with younger women, is you can be very autonomous if you're successful in IT. You can be independent financially. You can earn a lot of money working in IT. And we have a number of alternative role models that we also need to make women aware of. My husband gave up work when our children were 1 and 3. I've been the sole wage earner through all of their childhood, and actually it's been great. But offering up those alternative role models can be a good idea.
Yes, that's a nice idea. We'd like to thank Gillian, Sue and Rebecca very much for their participation today. Thank you.
Thank you.